They sat me by the kitchen. No name card, no smile, just a folding chair next to a tray of half-eaten shrimp. I paid for every single thing at that wedding, the flowers, the band, the custom neon sign that read, "Forever starts here." But when the music played and the champagne flowed, I wasn't in the room. I wasn't in the photos. I wasn't even a memory. I smiled. I stayed quiet. And after the last guest had their slice of cake, I canceled the brunch, the second set, and the open bar, quietly, efficiently, like a mother folding the last napkin after everyone's gone home. I was done pretending to be invisible in the very life I built. And if that made me the villain in someone else's fairy tale, so be it. At least this time, I wrote the ending. I'm about to share something close to my heart. But before I do, can you say hi in the comments? Or tell me where you're from. I love hearing how far my story reached. It's always good to know I'm not alone in this. Thank you. And now, let me tell you everything. And if this story touches you even just a little, consider subscribing to the channel. My name is Leora Marlowe. I'm 64, a mother, a widow, and until recently a very quiet woman. But not anymore. They sat me by the kitchen, not near it in it. A folding chair pressed against the wall next to a rolling tray, stacked with used silverware. A squeaky cart with chipped wheels and a stack of linen napkins half drenched in gravy. No name card. No hello. Just a young man in a black vest who gestured toward the chair like it was always meant for someone forgotten. "This way, ma'am," he mumbled without eye contact. I stared at him, waiting for a correction, a clarification, a flicker of decency. It never came. I wore a soft lilac dress, chiffon, hand-sewn. I'd spent 3 hours that morning getting my hair styled into a low twist, the way Cass liked it when he was little. "Makes you look like royalty, mama," that's what he used to say. I even wore the silver pendant he gave me when he graduated college, the one with his initials engraved on the back. I thought today would be something we both remembered. Turns out, only one of us would. The scent of marinara clung to the walls like old shame. The kitchen doors flung open and shut every 30 seconds, offering slivers of light laughter and the soft swell of jazz from the reception. I glimpsed the chandeliers, the flicker of floating candles, the custom signage, the Marlowe's strung in cursive neon. I paid for that sign. I paid for all of it. The chairs, the cutlery, the monogrammed cocktail napkins. I paid for the dress Chandler twirled in when she made her grand entrance. But when it was time to assign seats, I wasn't just forgotten. I was placed, deliberately, out of sight. Weeks ago, Chandler had texted me sweet and curated. "Hey, Ms. Leora. To keep the photo aesthetic consistent, we're thinking of setting up a quiet space for VIP family to rest during the reception. Hope that sounds good." I didn't understand then that quiet space meant a heat-blistered corner of a working kitchen with a gravy stain underfoot. I sat down. The chair creaked under me. My purse slipped into my lap, the one Cass gave me for Mother's Day 7 years ago when he still called me Mama instead of Leora. I placed my hands on top of it, folded, and still the way I used to hold them during night shifts in the ER between patients. A survival posture. Through the gap in the swinging door, I saw him. Cassian, my son. Smiling, confident, adjusting the lapel of his suit before stepping into their first dance. He never looked back. Not once. Not toward the kitchen. Not toward me. Someone outside laughed bright and close. A bridesmaid. She actually showed up, I heard her say. Didn't they handle that already? Another replied, "Guess someone forgot to double-check the list." The blood rushed out of my hands. I stared at my nails, still perfect from yesterday's manicure. Soft rose, just like Chandler asked for. "Neutral tones for family, nothing that pulls focus." She meant nails. Apparently, she meant everything else too. I watched my son dance with his bride, her veil swaying with each spin, the crowd clapping on beat. I didn't move. I didn't cry. I didn't raise a fuss. I just sat there in a lavender dress and 3-inch heels next to a mop bucket and a bucket of ice. I swallowed hard and kept swallowing. The chicken was cold, sliced skinless, plated on a chipped dish with 2 overcooked carrots and a smear of something that looked like butter, but tasted like regret. A teenage server dropped it in front of me with a rushed apology. Sorry, this was the last one from the first batch. I nodded. He didn't look me in the eye. The music had shifted. Slow, syrupy jazz poured in every time the door swung open. I stopped looking through the gap. I already knew what I'd see. Her mother, Mary Bell, draped in navy chiffon holding court at the head table, like she'd raised Cass herself. Her father, Rick, delivering a booming toast about family legacy and how Chandler had always dreamed of a wedding just like this. I'd dreamed too. Not of chandeliers or signature cocktails, but of being seen, of hearing my name in the list of thanks, of being called Mom instead of the checkbook. I pulled the program from my purse cream cardstock gold foil lettering, Cassian's name embossed above Chandler's, a string quartet schedule, the dinner menu, and a note that read, "Thank you to all our family who helped make this day so special." That was it. No Leora, no Mom, just invisible ink where my place should have been. The band began their second set. Cass took the mic to thank guests. "We're so grateful for everyone here tonight. To Chandler's parents, thank you for everything you've done. You've welcomed me like a son." His voice was warm, familiar, practiced. "To our friends, family, and everyone who helped make today magical, we love you." I waited for my name. It never came. My slice of cake arrived in a plastic dish, vanilla sponge with raspberry filling. Chandler's favorite. I've never liked raspberry. I took one bite and set the fork down. By the time I got back to my hotel, the ballroom was still pulsing through the hills. I could hear it faintly through the open window, the tail end of a Bruno Mars cover, echoing from across the vineyard. I closed it, locked it, then sat on the edge of the bed in silence. I opened my tablet. 312 rows. That's how many line items were in the wedding spreadsheet. Venue deposit, floral design, tent lighting, chair rentals, personalized vows on parchment paper. I'd tracked every payment, every cent, every upgrade. 2 entries jumped out at me, both from 3 days ago. Chandler's pre-wedding crawl, bar tab, $862 brunch venue upgrade, rehearsal morning, $130, both charged to my card. I clicked into the Venmo app, found a public transaction between Chandler and her maid of honor. Caption, "His mom's got it all covered. Might as well go big." I didn't blink. I just reached for my phone and dialed. First, the florist. "Hi, this is Leora Marlowe. Yes, for tomorrow's delivery. I'd like to cancel." "Yes, I understand the policy. That's fine." Second, the band manager. "We won't be needing the second half of tonight's set. Please pack up after the first. No explanation needed." Third, the bartender. "Cut the second shift. No cocktail hour tomorrow. Just water and soda, if anything. Do not process the remaining balance." Click, click, click. No yelling, no drama, no threats. Just clean decisions, like stitching a wound closed. I set the phone down. My hands didn't tremble. My heart didn't race. For the first time in hours, I felt something solid move through my chest. Not bitterness, not revenge, power. The kind you reclaim quietly, the kind no one thinks you still have until you use it. I couldn't sleep. The air in the hotel room felt heavy, like it had soaked up all the noise from the reception across the hill and was still trying to hum it back. I sat at the small desk in the corner, the one by the window, with the chipped paint on the sill and the lamp that buzzed if you looked at it wrong. The glow from my tablet lit my face like a ghost. The rest of the room was dark. I hadn't turned on the overhead light. Didn't need to. My thoughts were loud enough. I opened the spreadsheet again. I had stared at those same 300 rows so many times I knew their order by heart. Table linens, calligraphy, plated desserts, shuttle bus service for guests. Every cell reminded me of what I gave, what I never asked back. But I wasn't looking for numbers now. I was looking for something colder than that. I tapped open my Venmo app on a whim, not expecting much, just curious. Then I saw it. A public transaction from Chandler to her maid of honor, a wine glass emoji, a sparkle. And this? His mom's got it all covered, so we're doing Aspen-level glam, y'all. Dream wedding. Not my budget. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. Then I tapped it awake again. It wasn't shock. It wasn't even rage. It was the sudden ache that comes when you realize someone saw your generosity as a loophole, a green light, an opportunity, not a gift. I dug through my old email chain with Chandler. The way she wrote, always so polished, so perfectly polite. We're thinking of elevating the lighting concept. Would love to explore a more curated tablescape. Cass mentioned you'd be open to covering additional upgrades. Not once did she say thank you. Not once did she say, is this okay? She only ever said, we were told you'd handle it. I scrolled up months back to one of her first messages. Hi, Ms. Leora. Cass said you're happy to take care of the big stuff so we don't have to stress. That's such a blessing. We don't want to burden you with details, so just trust we'll keep everything tasteful. Burden. Like transparency was a chore. Like asking for permission was unnecessary. Like I had already agreed to be erased. I reopened the spreadsheet, narrowed the search to high-dollar expenses, and filtered by vendor. There it was. Bridal gown $6,750. Paid by my card. No note, no heads up. Just quietly charged 2 months ago. I didn't even remember signing off on that line. Maybe it had been buried under others. Maybe I'd been too tired to notice. Or maybe I trusted too easily that my love wouldn't be weaponized against me. I thought of Cass years ago holding my hand in the soccer store when he wanted cleats I couldn't afford. It's okay, Mom. We can wait. Now he wore cufflinks I paid for, smiled beside a woman who used my name like a discount code. I wasn't their guest. I was their ghost. The screen's glow caught my reflection in the window. I looked hollow. Not old, not even sad, just unoccupied. Like someone had moved out of me and left the lights on. I opened a folder on my tablet named Contracts and clicked through PDF's Florist Band Bar. But then I remembered. The originals weren't all digital. Some were still in the red file folder back home, the one I kept in my nightstand drawer, along with the old insurance papers, and the letter Graham wrote me before he died, the one I never opened. I'd meant to toss it or keep it or burn it. But instead, I let it live under layers of quiet. I hadn't thought of it in years, until now. Something tugged at me, a pull I couldn't name. I closed the tablet, stood. Tomorrow I'd go home to Boone, pick up the letter, read what I'd been too afraid to know. The wedding was over. The performance done. I had swallowed enough. It was time to spit something out. The house was still exactly as I left it, though it felt different stepping through the door. Not quieter, but sharper. Like silence had grown teeth. Outside, the roses I planted 2 summers ago had exploded in bloom, the petals heavy and proud. Inside, the kitchen smelled faintly of lavender, and the last thing I baked something sweet I can't remember. I didn't take off my shoes. Just walked straight through the hallway past the framed photos into the bedroom. The drawer stuck the way it always did. I had to press my hip into it, jiggle the handle a certain way. Inside, everything was there. Bills from 2016. Cass's high school essays. A birthday card from my sister I never replied to. And the red folder. It wasn't labeled. Didn't need to be. I knew exactly what lived inside it. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened it slowly, flipping past old tax returns and health records until I saw the envelope. Margaret, written in Graham's slanted handwriting. No date on the outside, but I flipped it over. The seal was intact. My breath stuttered. I opened it. The letter was dated 3 weeks before his death. Margaret. I know you never wanted to hear from me again, and I respect that, but I need to say something before it's too late. There's a truth I can't take with me, a truth you deserve, even if it hurts. I blinked hard, but kept reading. Cassian isn't yours. Not biologically. I never told you because I couldn't stand the idea of losing what we had. He came from someone else, an old mistake, before you and I married. She didn't want him. I did. But I couldn't raise him alone. And I knew you loved too hard, too deep, that you wouldn't let a child go once he was in your arms. I'm sorry. For the lie. For the silence. For letting you build your life on a truth I twisted. The page trembled in my hands. My first thought wasn't rage. It wasn't betrayal. It was hunger. Not for food, for breath, for clarity. For the version of my life that could have been if I'd known. And then, almost instantly, it was gone. That version, like a door that had never existed. I folded the letter, placed it on my lap. My eyes stayed on it, but my mind drifted. Cass's first fever, his obsession with dinosaurs, the way he used to trace the veins on my hand when he couldn't fall asleep. None of that felt borrowed. None of that felt false. He was never mine, but I had been his, entirely, without contract, without claim, without blood. I stood, walked to the kitchen, filled the kettle, poured a cup of black coffee, no sugar, sat at the table and stared out the window as the light shifted through the trees. Boone was quiet in the morning. The kind of quiet that doesn't try to hide anything. I didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt, but because something in me had changed. I didn't feel like someone who'd just lost a son. I felt like someone who'd just been let out of a room she never knew she'd been locked in. For the first time in a long while, I saw myself not as a mother, but as a woman, still standing, still full of heat, still here. The kitchen looked almost golden that afternoon, like it was lit from inside the walls instead of the sun outside. The light pushed through the slats of the wooden blinds, striping the tiled floor, catching on the brushed edges of the cabinets I'd repainted myself 2 years ago. This room had held so many beginnings, first steps, birthday pancakes, burnt garlic bread. Now it would hold something else, an ending. I didn't move quickly. I moved deliberately. Every photo came down with both hands. Cassian in his graduation robe, his first lost tooth. Him sitting cross-legged at age 5, holding a plastic sword on Halloween. The one of the 3 of us on a park bench and Savannah Graham's arm around me, Cass, leaning into my shoulder. I didn't break any frames. I didn't tear anything. I wrapped each one in an old handkerchief, the ones embroidered with initials of women I never met. My mother's mother and hers before that. The box was medium-sized, nothing fancy, just sturdy enough. I labeled it in blue ink memories, not obligations. Next, I printed every email from Chandler, from Cassian, pages and pages of wedding prep transactions, forwarded vendor details. No greetings, no thank yous, just instructions, requests, notes on visual balance and event harmony. I slipped in the scanned copy of the bridal gown invoice, and last the letter from Graham. I didn't reread it. I didn't need to. I closed the box, taped the seams, wrote in neat cursive on the lid to Cassian Marlowe, when you are ready to remember like an adult. I carried the box to the living room and left it by the bookshelf, a quiet declaration. Not a message meant to hurt, but one that could no longer be silenced. Then I opened Facebook. I didn't scroll. I didn't peek at old memories. I uploaded a photo, a single image. It showed the check I wrote to the venue, $12,000 in neat penmanship, my signature on the bottom right. The date from 6 months ago. No caption, no hashtags, no tags, just the truth sitting there in black and white. By evening, the notifications began to flood in. Are you okay? What happened? I heard something about the wedding. Are you all right? I always knew something felt off about that girl. I didn't answer. Then a message came through from Chandler. This is really about where you sat. Seriously, that's petty, Miss Leora. It's not a big deal. You're making it one. Grow up. I read it once. Smiled without warmth. Closed the app. That night, I made myself a meal I hadn't cooked in years. Lemon garlic pasta. Simple. Olive oil, wine-shaved parmesan. I plated it like I used to when I still cared about presentation. Sat down, lit a candle, took the first bite in silence. The flavor was sharp, real, unapologetic, like me. The drawer in the living room hadn't opened properly in years. I'd shoved odds and ends in there for so long it had become a time capsule of clutter, expired coupons, a broken remote holiday cards with glitter that still stained the lining. I wasn't even sure why I tried that night, but something instinct or fatigue or some final thread told me to check again. It took effort, both hands, and a soft curse, but it slid open. And inside, tucked between a faded recipe card and a church bulletin from 2013, was a letter. No envelope. Folded in thirds. My name wasn't on it, but I knew the handwriting, and the date in the corner, 3 days before Graham died, made my chest tighten. I unfolded it. I wasn't going to write this. I thought the first letter was enough. But the truth doesn't stay still, Margaret. It keeps asking to be heard. I sat down slowly. I lied again. Not just once, not just to you, but to myself. Cassian wasn't the result of a mistake I made before we met. He was never mine either. A girl named Emily, funny enough same name as his ex, showed up at my office one winter morning. Cold, barely 19. She handed me a bundle wrapped in a hospital blanket and said, "Find him a real home." My vision swam, but I didn't stop reading. I was supposed to bring him to the agency, to give him up legally, but I couldn't. He was too small, too human. I took him home. Told you he was mine from a fling you didn't need to know about. You slapped me, I remember it. But then you held him. And the room changed. You didn't ask again. I've lived my whole life with a fear you'd find out, that you'd hate me, that Cass would. But I've also lived with gratitude. Because you didn't just raise him, you gave him a name, a life, a mother, one I never could. I read the letter twice, 3 times, and when I folded it back, something in me settled. Graham hadn't made me a fool. He'd given me a choice, even if it came dressed as a lie. And I had chosen, not once but 1,000 times over, to feed, to hold, to protect, to pay, to forgive. I never had a son, not by blood, not by birth, but I had raised a man, and that mattered more than biology ever could. I walked to the printer, copied both letters, laid them in the same box with the wedding receipts, the check photo, the gown invoice, every piece of proof that I had existed in this story more than a prop, more than a purse string. I had been the spine. Then I lit another candle, the same lavender sage one from the night before, and waited. The doorbell rang just past 9. The knock was soft, almost shy. Through the frosted glass, I saw a silhouette, broad shoulders, nervous hands. Cassian. I stood. This time I didn't flinch. I didn't smooth my dress or rehearse anything clever. I simply walked to the door, placed one hand on the knob, and let the weight of every silent year anchor me steady. Let him speak first, or not at all. I was done being the one who explained everything, and for the first time I knew he would have to earn the right to call me Mom again. Cassian stood at the door like a stranger unsure of his welcome. I didn't say anything at first. I just opened the door, stepped aside, and walked back into the living room. The silence between us wasn't cold, it was clinical. A boundary drawn without rage. He followed eyes flicking across the bare walls. The gallery of family photos once hung there like wallpaper birthdays, holidays, firsts, and lasts. Now they were gone, packed away in a box he hadn't noticed yet tucked beneath the coffee table. He didn't ask. He sat down. On the edge of the couch, hands clasped like he was praying for a version of me he used to know, one who would smooth things over. I didn't sit. "This is all because of a seat," he asked. "Mom, it was a mix-up. Chandler never meant to hurt you." He laughed soft and sheepish like we were just two people sorting out a misunderstanding over dinner plans. I didn't even realize until after. The day was just busy. You know how weddings are. I said nothing. He went on reaching for reason like a lifeline. I didn't think you'd make it a thing. I mean, Chandler said you were okay with helping behind the scenes, that it was part of the aesthetic. I walked over to the bookshelf, picked up the box, placed it on the coffee table between us. No warning, no build-up. Open it. He hesitated, then lifted the lid. One by one, he pulled out the items' receipts. Over 300 lines of them, printouts of Venmo comments, that now familiar one from Chandler. His mom's got it all covered Aspen-level glam, y'all. Dream wedding, emails, tone-polished, emotionless. And finally, 2 letters. Graham's handwriting. Graham's truth. I watched his face shift, from defensiveness to confusion to shock. When he finally looked up, his voice cracked. You knew I wasn't yours. And you still... I interrupted. No, Cassian. You weren't my blood, but I was still your mother, until you decided I didn't belong in your frame. He looked like a boy again. One I hadn't seen since he was 10. Wide-eyed small, unsure of the rules. I didn't know Chandler was going to... I didn't think it was that serious. No, I said quietly, you didn't think at all. He reached for justification like a drowning man reaching for shore. She said, you wouldn't mind? I didn't want to start a fight on the wedding week. You didn't need to lift me onto the stage, Cass. But you had no right to let anyone shove me into the kitchen. He winced, but didn't argue. I walked to the old drawer by the window, pulled out a frame. One photo remained. Cassian at 6 arms flung around my neck, dirt on his cheeks from the playground. I slipped the photo from its frame, walked over, pressed it into his hands. Keep it. I've held on long enough. He sat there stunned, the photo resting in his lap like a question. I walked to the door, opened it. He didn't stand right away. Then he did. He paused on the threshold, looking for the right words, the final plea. Do you still consider me your son? I looked at him, fully, for the first time in a long time. I don't consider you anything anymore. I consider myself. And then I closed the door. The sun set slower that evening as if time itself had been told to linger. The backyard smelled like rosemary and warm pine. I had strung up lights across the fence. Nothing fancy, just soft yellow bulbs clipped to twine. A long wooden table stood in the middle of the grass, covered with a sunflower-patterned cloth. 8 chairs, no name cards, no titles, just seats. By 5:30 they arrived. Sharon Malloy, my best friend since college, with her famous key lime pie. Ronnie Felder, the widower next door with homemade peach chutney and a bottle of red that hadn't seen daylight in years. Mrs. Diane, an old colleague who once shared a cramped seat with me at a nursing conference and never forgot my birthday since. And even the new librarian from town whose name I still stumbled over, but who brought laughter like dessert. Each guest came with food and, more importantly, a story. Not about Cassian, not about the wedding, about me. Leora once drove 4 hours to rescue me from a date gone wrong, Sharon said, raising her glass. She taught me how to plant tomatoes, said Ronnie, and curse like a sailor when they died. They told tales that reminded me who I was when no one was watching. I served everyone myself. Mango slaw with chili and lime, creamed corn soup, honey roasted chicken I'd brined for 12 hours and basted like it was sacred. When the plates were full and the candles flickered to life, I stood. I used to think my only role in life was being a mother, I said. Now I know I am more. A woman, a friend, a pillar, myself. They clinked glasses. No speeches, no applause. Just warmth. Later that night, when the dishes were stacked and the guests hugged their goodbyes, I found a bouquet on my front steps. White roses, no card, no ribbon, no name. I didn't pause. I carried them to the bin, lifted the lid, dropped them in. No anger, no grief, just clarity. Cassian never called, no text, no email. I didn't check twice. I deleted his contact. I didn't do it to erase him. I did it to stop waiting. After everyone left, I stayed in the backyard. The lights above hummed quietly, and the wind carried the smell of basil and citronella. I opened my laptop. A blank document stared back at me, and I began. I once sat in a kitchen at a party I paid for. They didn't see me. But that night, I saw myself clearer than ever. I kept writing. Words poured like wine, unapologetic and honest. I am no longer just a mother. I am the only person in my life who never stopped showing up. And finally, I had given myself the seat I always deserved.